Devil May Cry is a very good series, but it's also, for the most part, a very hard series. Many a tale has been written about how hard these games are, especially on the harder difficulties. Something that is comparatively less talked about though is the difficulty of the achievements or trophies, whichever you prefer, it doesn't matter. So I decided to take a look at the rarest trophy of every single Devil May Cry game. Some I was expecting, while others came as a complete surprise to me. First though, a few ground rules. First, it has to be an actual Devil May Cry game. No Shin Megami Tensei 3 featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series, no Marvel vs. Capcom. I did consider putting them in for a funny, and I want you to know that I did at least consider that. Second, as always, we're looking at the PlayStation trophies for the purpose of this list for the percentages and whatnot, though I don't imagine the rarest is going to be different on any other platform. I will give you the percentages from both lists if the game has different versions on PlayStation, for example, both the PS4 and 5 versions of Devil May Cry 5. I am doing this for a very specific reason that we will get to, don't you worry. Lastly, while I have played all of these games, I have not personally platinumed all of them yet, so there may be some things that I miss. I will do my best to not do that though. With all that said though, let's get into this, starting with Devil May Cry. I Read You Like a Book, 2% on PS3 and 1.6% on PS4. Oh boy, we're starting with a doozy. So this trophy is weird, as I wouldn't necessarily say it's difficult in the traditional sense. It's just really bloomin' annoying. For this, you need to completely fill out all the enemy files. If you're uninformed in this game, you might think this is just a case of defeating or even just encountering every enemy type, which wouldn't be difficult at all, there's not that many in this game. But no, there's actually a lot more work that goes into this. You see, every enemy will typically have between like 7 and 12 entries under their file. Most of these entries are tied to seeing them use certain moves, which is normally a case of just waiting around for them to use them. Which is not what you're going to do in normal play, right? You're not just going to sit there and let the enemies do their moves. You're going to be in there attacking them. There are other files though that need you to do something to the enemy, such as getting a critical kill on the Reaper looking guys, which is a lot more difficult and finicky than you may think. The timing and positioning is really tight. There's also one for jumping on the blade thing of the Shadow when he launches forward, which is cool though, I will admit. When I say enemy files, that does also include bosses, but I think I'm going to go ahead and say that the bosses are generally a lot easier to fill out than the regular enemies, at least in my experience. I won't list every single note and how to get them because you can find a guide for that, but I will instead talk about how there is nothing to suggest how to get these in the game. If I wasn't following said guide, I don't think I would have figured out any of the more specific ones, and honestly I would have even missed some of the just watch a certain move ones, because some moves are just really infrequent. Personally, the fetish, he would not jump on me. I was there for like an hour trying to get him to jump on me and pin me down, and it just wouldn't do it. Another, perhaps overlooked factor in the rarity of this trophy is that DMC 1 doesn't have any kind of mission select, the only game to not have that. So if you miss something like a boss file or the underwater enemies for example that can only be encountered at very specific parts of the game, you'll need to beat the game and then go back to them on New Game Plus. This is the main factor that makes DMC 1's Platinum a pain in general, and probably why it's the most necessary to have a guide for all the collectibles and missable stuff. Am I surprised that this was the rarest? Not really. The only one that I think could have beaten it was Dante Must Die difficulty, but I think it's way more likely someone would beat that just to have fun than to do this enemy file hunt for the same reason. Devil May Cry 2. Over 9,000. 3.6% on PS3 and 2.5% on PS4. Oh, Devil May Cry 2. Should I start by saying something nice? At least the characters don't swear every other word. That wouldn't be very Devil May Cry of it, and it's a good thing that no Devil May Cry media does that. Anyway, this trophy is for reaching floor 9,000 in the Bloody Palace. If you do this the proper, intended way, it might actually be a little bit of a challenge, well, at least by Devil May Cry 2 standards. You'll have a minimum of 90 battles filled with different enemies that get progressively more difficult as you get further through the floors. You may notice that I said if you do this the proper, intended way, meaning that there's a not proper intended way. So first off, you need to beat Must Die mode for one character. It doesn't matter which, but Lucia's campaign is shorter than Dante's. You then need to go into your console system settings, yes really, and change your language to a European language that isn't English, or you can pick Chinese at the bottom, and for whatever reason, only in these languages you can unlock the unlimited devil trigger by holding both triggers on the mission select screen. This is one of those things that sounds totally made up on GameFAQs, just being so overly specific, but no, it's actually real, I can confirm that. I have no idea why all languages don't work for this, and to be honest, it's way more memorable and funny because not every language works. Unlimited Devil Trigger makes Bloody Palace really easy. You can play as Trish, Devil Trigger, and use her air laser attack thing to take everything out while never being in any danger yourself. Does make sense it's the rarest though. DMC2 is by far the easiest game even on harder difficulties, so the side mode that people are less likely to play anyway being rarer than the main game makes total sense to me. Devil May Cry 3, Hellish Honor, 3.6% on PS3 and 2.7% on PS4. DMC3 is maybe my favourite one. It's between this and DMC5, which I know, yes, how basic of me, but it's basic for a reason, they're really good. This trophy needs you to beat every mission with an S rank, and importantly, you have to do all the missions as one character. You can't mix and match between Dante and Virgil. Your mission rank is determined by a few factors: time, orbs, style points, damage taken, and how many items you use, but a few of these kind of need basically the same thing. Like, if you take no damage, you won't be as likely to need to use items, though for S you should definitely aim for no damage, no items in most cases. Time taken is obvious, just beat the level quickly. Easier later on once you know the layout of everything. Orbs and style point also kind of go together. The higher your combo style bar gets, the more red orbs drop, so they both are connected in that way. I think the main thing that makes this trophy a lot easier than you may think though is that you can do it on any difficulty, including easy. All the S rank requirements are actually different depending on what difficulty you use, and easy has the most reasonable as you'd expect. So not only is it the easiest difficulty by normal metrics, but it also has the easier S ranks. Adding on to that, if you do the harder difficulties first, which, as this is the rarest trophy, that means more people have done the harder difficulties, you get additional costumes which you can use to make your life even more easy, such as the Super Spada costume. Now, with all the technical whatsits out the way, even with all these things that make it easier, I still wouldn't say it's 100% free, right? You need to have a little bit of an idea what you're doing. A lot of the missions still need you to take low amounts of damage, so just running in without knowing any attacks or patterns is not going to get you the S rank. You will probably not do very well. It is still the rarest for a reason, even with all this help you can give yourself. It's why doing this last, or close to last, is probably a good idea. You'll need to do at least 5 playthroughs anyway for the other difficulty trophies, so why not save the ranking one for when you're best equipped and know the level layouts and whatnot. I'll be honest, I was expecting Dante Must Die difficulty to be rarer, just because you can do this on easy, but I guess that goes to show that to assume is to make an ass out of you and me. Devil May Cry 4. House of Pain, 0.6%. DMC4 is definitely the game I have the least strong feelings on. I mean, I remember enjoying it, but it's sandwiched between 3 and 5, which are both excellent, while 4 is just good, I guess. What I didn't realise about DMC4 though is just how intimidating the trophy list is. Like, there are a lot of ranking and more importantly difficulty specific ranking trophies. For the rarest though, we're going back to the Bloody Palace. Specifically, you need to beat all 101 floors of the Bloody Palace with all 5 characters in the game, which is the most out of any of the main games. The mobile one might have more, I don't know, I haven't played it. The 5 characters are Dante, Virgil, Nero, Trish, and Lady. Now, I don't think going through each floor individually is really a good use of either of our time, so instead I'll give just more general advice, though it's going to be similar to previous games. Nero, Dante, and Virgil all have super costumes that you can unlock by finishing their respective campaigns on Dante Must Die mode, and they all help massively with beating Bloody Palace. You could also spend money and buy the DLC that unlocks these right away, which is certainly something you can do, but it is worth noting that you need to beat at least one campaign on Dante Must Die anyway for another trophy. Up to you though, I'm not a fan of this sort of thing, buying the unlocks, but it's your money, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. These super costumes give you unlimited devil trigger and maxed gauges for the characters, which can massively help in these fights. Lady and Trish though don't have super costumes, so they will just be harder, and I think this is reflected in the individual trophies for beating Bloody Palace as all the characters. Virgil is at 4.6, Dante 2.6, Nero 1.4, while Trish and Lady are both at a 0.7. The lack of super costumes might not be the only reason, but surely it is playing a part. There are naturally ways to make even these characters easier for yourself, but most of the guides I was looking at basically opened with, yeah, you need to actually know how to play this character. Am I surprised this is the rarest? Kind of. When I was looking through the list, I just sort of was expecting Dante Must Die all S ranks to be rarer, but nope, Bloody Palace takes it. Again, maybe just because it's the side mode, or maybe people just aren't as good as some characters. DMC Devil May Cry. You're not worthy as my opponent, 0.7% on PS3, and I only take special jobs, 1.9% on PS4. So you've probably noticed, that's two different trophies. What gives? Well, this game is pretty unique in that its trophy lists are actually pretty different across versions. Being more specific on that, the PS4 Definitive Edition is much easier than the original PS3 version, as it removed a lot of the harder trophies, with the highest difficulty you need for the plat on PS4 being Dante Must Die, whereas on PS3 you need to beat Hell and Hell. As it's more common, we'll start with the PS4 version's rarest. For this, you need to triple S rank 10 missions in Dante's campaign. This might seem intimidating, but I found that this game is actually really generous. Your ranking is determined by 3 factors. Collection, which is for getting all the collectibles in a level and should be a non-issue if you're going for the platinum as you need them all anyway. Time, which is simple, just go fast. And style, which is from combat and combos and whatnot. Style is almost certainly going to be the deciding factor here. Make sure you're doing different moves and keeping the style gauge as high as you can for more points. You can also do any difficulty for this without worrying about it affecting your score. It's not like higher difficulties give you more score or anything. More general advice is to go for early game or short and boss fight missions, but the advice remains the same as the other games. While you need to know how to play, it's far more lenient than other games with the scoring. The PS3 version's rarest is for beating Virgil's Downfall on Hell and Hell difficulty. Virgil's Downfall is the short DLC released where you play as Virgil, and Hell and Hell difficulty is where you die in one hit while enemies are on Son of Sparta level difficulty, and importantly, don't die in one hit. The DLC is only 6 missions long, and Virgil himself has some good moves. I'm going to give a massive shout out to the Phantom Sword spinning move, which can shred enemies and give you a really high style rank, which isn't as useful for this achievement, but I still wanted to mention it. The key to not getting hit and thus beating Hell and Hell is pattern recognition and avoiding attacks when you see tells. I know that sounds really basic for advice, but that is a lot easier said than done. Particularly on bosses such as Hollow Virgil, who is like Virgil but more hollow. Obviously what Hell and Hell difficulty does is remove the margin for error. Mistiming a dodge or whatever now no longer just hurts you a little bit, it just flat out kills you, forcing you to lose progress. It needs you to play very well, but I suppose a perfect player would find this easier than Virgil Must Die. If they're not getting hit anyway, this would have less aggressive enemies. Makes you wonder. I don't know why they decided to change the list for the PS4 re-release of the game. Maybe they wanted it to appear more casual friendly. I don't know, I'm not a developer. If you have any idea why, send it on a postcard or in the comments, whichever you prefer. Devil May Cry 5, Worthy of Legend. 0.4% on PS4 and 0.2% on PS5. And the most obvious trophy on this list goes to... Yeah, this trophy is pretty infamous even beyond Devil May Cry as just an insane challenge. What you need to do for this trophy is get an S rank on every mission on every difficulty, except Heaven or Hell. Oh well, that's good at least, they're not making us go too hard. Oh wait, no, there's one harder, and yes, you do need to do Hell and Hell as well. This is simply a trial. If you're one of those that thinks these games are just button mashing, you will not be getting anywhere close to this. I mean, the same applies to the other games except maybe Devil May Cry 2, I feel like you can mash your way through that one, but it's especially clear here. In this game, the S rank is decided solely by style points which you get from combat, with multipliers being applied based on other factors. For example, no damage taken in a mission is points times 2, which is helpful and something you should definitely aim for where possible. Whereas if you use a super costume, reduces your points to only a fifth of what you've earned. Ruling that out as a way to get this trophy. You can't use super costumes at all pretty much. You have 3 characters in Dante, V and Nero, and you will need to play as all of them. It's not like other games where you can do all the ranking trophies as 1 or 2 characters. No, you need to learn 3 very distinct playstyles, and no, you can't use Virgil, it doesn't count. The difficulties all have progressively more difficult score requirements, except Hell and Hell, which is the same as Son of Sparta, but considering you die if you get grazed slightly, I think that's a fair trade. There are guides online, of course, with people trying to give the best or easiest possible method, and the most common advice I saw parroted was to abuse Dante's Dr. Faust and set V to auto attack and focus on not getting hit. Nero though had a lot less advice that didn't boil down to, yeah, get good and learn his moves. Which is fair, I suppose. Wouldn't be much of a challenge if everything could be cheesed, and when I say cheesed, I mean relative to without using these tactics. It's still going to be about as far from a free win as it could be. If you Google this trophy, you will find pages and pages of people complaining about how difficult this is. I agree it's an insane challenge and very difficult, but isn't that kind of the point of trophy hunting? To earn it? I've never understood farming shovelware just to inflate your numbers. That's not impressive. You tell me you've platted Devil May Cry 5 though, and I will tell you that that is a feat that is truly worthy of legend. And that is all of them. How many of these do you have? Personally, I have the Platinum for DMC 1, 2, 3, and the PS4 version of the DMC reboot. Let me know that and more in the comments, and whilst you're down there, why not subscribe? It's free, helps me out, and gives you easy access to all my videos, both old and new. They're all trophy and achievement related, so check them out if you like that. I did this same format for Resident Evil, so check that out if you'd like. Also press like if you like this video, even a little bit, because that's still enough, that counts, alright? Thank you for watching. For now though, I'm off. Hunt them trophies, and I'll see you next time.